Around USC, it's dog work or it's no work.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Culkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every day, whether you're going to watch a show on YouTube or wherever you want to download your podcast. Never forget the show is free, and always remember how much I appreciate your support. These days, every new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions will apply. Anyone here a fan of Ray Charles? Because I've got Georgia on my mind. It was literally just another typical Sunday, Southern California. USC's class of 2025. It had one recruit, quarterback Juju Lewis, quarterback from the state of Georgia. And then all of a sudden the floodgates opened. There was a loud noise. And I think it was a collective, oh my God, what's happening? And it was emanating from the state of Georgia, from Athens specifically. Late Saturday night, word started to break. And then it happened. Not one, not two, not three or four. By the time this episode of Locked On USC went into production, Lincoln Riley and his coaching staff woke up the college football fans of the world, who literally have been ignoring what took place this past offseason. USC received 5 commitments one day within a 24-hour period. All of a sudden, USC had the number 3 rated class in the country. They trailed only Ohio State, who has 8 commitments, and LSU 11. USC has 5 total. 6 total. And they're the number 3 class in the country. Georgia fans themselves are, I think, right now in a state of denial. They think it's all about the bag man, which is ironic considering, SEC. But let me tell you how the whole day started. It started Sunday morning, actually late Saturday night, real early Sunday morning, when Justice Terry, a 5-star committed defensive lineman to the University of Georgia, flipped to Coach Henne and USC. 6'5", 275 pounds. Justice Terry is the nation's number 8 overall prospect in the entire class of 2025. And he represents the first, there's no other way to say it, massive recruiting win for USC's defensive line coach, Eric Henderson, and Sean Newell. USC head coach Lincoln Riley hired Eric Henderson specifically to develop USC's defensive line and to generate some excitement with the recruits. Both are starting to come to fruition. Justice visited USC this past weekend. It was a rainy Saturday, at least the first half of the day. And he got to see Eric Henderson developing his current group of defensive linemen. And again, I have to say this. I want to make sure I emphasize this again. Justice was committed to the Georgia Bulldogs when he took this unofficial visit to USC. And he had also taken an unofficial visit to Florida State. After that visit to the Seminoles down in Tallahassee, he spoke with On3's Chad Simmons. And this is what he said what was next. I'm strong with Georgia, but I will take my visits. Georgia tells me, go out, explore other options, and then come back to Athens anytime I want because they will always be there. Georgia is the school I am committed to, and I'm going to underline this part, and nothing has changed with that. I will take some official visits in the summer, and I'm still working on dates, but I think schools like Alabama and Georgia will, for one for sure, as well as Florida State, USC, and others. I think someone needs to tell Kirby Smart something has changed. Coach Riley, Coach Henderson, they took the Bulldogs' centerpiece, of this class. This is who Kirby Smart was building their 2025 class around. This literally could be the Sean Cody signing that USC needed. When Pete Carroll took over USC, recruiting needed that jump start. Sean Cody was that man. Justice Terry could be it this time around. And then once that Georgia peach was snatched off of Kirby's tree, USC got another huge commitment. 4-star Warner Robins, Georgia, defensive lineman Isaiah Gibson. He's 6'5", 257 pounds, edge rusher. A month ago, USC was an afterthought. Gibson hadn't scheduled an official visit, but he knew of 4 schools that would be getting them. At that time, Clemson, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Oregon. He told On3, I really love the culture and the coaching at those 4 schools. What makes me want to be a part of these programs is everything that they have to offer. Well, now, after one unofficial visit to USC, he's committed to USC. Quote, the opportunities that USC has on and off the field were big, for sure. It was my first time in California, and I like that they have my major, business real estate. I feel like I can thrive inside and outside of football, and it was just the right decision, close quote. He and Terry actually committed back-to-back in Lincoln Riley's office. I was in the office talking to Coach Riley for like an hour, and Justice and Coach Henney were in the office. Justice was like, let's make it a done deal. Coach and I came right out. Coach and I came right behind him and committed. Next up was number 3 on the day, class of 2026. He also got to watch practice this past Saturday. His chaperone, his name is BMW. Around USC, that's Big Mike Williams. Tampa, Florida, Robinson class of 2026, cornerback Dominic Kelly. He came out for a 7-on-7 event in February, and then he came back. And on Sunday, he announced his commitment. Again, he came back for the unofficial recruiting event that USC held this past weekend. USC is a program that is for sure at the top of my list, and it was a priority to get out there and begin building a relationship with the staff, close quote. So that was the first 3 victory salutes of the day. Again, USC, the staff, they were just getting started. Number 4, Hilton, Drake Stubbs. He became the 4th big-time prospect. He was actually on campus earlier in the week. He was checking out spring practice number 1. He was with his parents, and he spent a lot of time with Lincoln Riley, spent some time with Caleb Williams, and then, look who all of a sudden walks through the Howard Jones gate, through Goo Gate, Howard Jones Field, Hall of Famer Ronnie Lott. So they got to spend some time together. This is what Drake Stubbs had to say. Coach Riley is a key reason for my interest. I recently talked to Coach Riley on the phone a couple of days ago. Then Coach Doug Belt came to the school, and I was talking to him a lot too. They're showing a lot of interest in me. They love my film. They love how I play, and they say they really like me. My time at USC was pretty awesome. This is what he told to WeAreSC.com after his visit. The campus had a great vibe, and everyone was really welcoming. The football program was even better than I imagined, especially after chatting with Coach Riley. He had some impressive strategies for the team. Plus, the idea of being in LA could be a game changer for me. There are so many opportunities, not just in football, but also in entertainment and business. Overall, my visit to USC has me feeling really excited about the future, of what the future can hold. But wait, there's even more. USC went full sham wow. Yeah, they added another defensive lineman. to their class of 2025. And this one from the state of Texas. 3-star, can't get all the 5 stars, can't get all the 4 stars. Sometimes you got to look at who's offering. You're going to like this guy's offer list. His name is Gus Cordova, and he's a 6'4", 250-pound defensive lineman. Again, he holds offers from Baylor, LSU, Miami, Michigan, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas, Texas A&M. All of those schools have offered, and none of those schools have backed off. And I bring that up because there was a hazing incident, and a lot of people are jumping all over the young man, and it's being way overblown. Number one, I just said it. None of those schools that I just mentioned have backed off as a recruitment. And number two, the guy who he was allegedly hazing, that was affected by the situation. I'm not saying it didn't happen. However, the young man that was affected, he played in his game 2 hours later. So don't believe everything you read on the internet. Just saying. All right. So there you go. 5 commitments on Sunday, one day after USC held a pretty impressive unofficial recruiting weekend. And I'm here to let my everydayers know that USC is not done. Okay? Not sure when, but everyone needs to expect another pipe to burst. And what I will tell you is the defensive line will be the benefactors. So stay tuned. Make sure you're tuning in to Locked on USC every day, and you will be kept up to date with what's going on with recruiting. And this past weekend, boy, USC made some noise. This week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any and all of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. The Iowa State Cyclones can only be described as a pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves, entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country. They now have a date with Illinois this Thursday in the Sweet 16. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney, whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed. It's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked on and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked on Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest sports stories without all the screaming. Locked on Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Man, there's a lot of advertisements. I get it, but this is why this show is free. You don't have to pay for anything. All right, let's move on to segment number 2. I hate seafood. It's just not my thing. But if you're from Houston or New Orleans or from the South in general, you probably love a good old-fashioned crawfish boil or crayfish. How do you pronounce it? Let me know. Hit me up in the comments section. By the way, if you like what you're watching, like what you're hearing, do me a favor. If you're on YouTube, become a subscriber. It's easy, it's quick, it's free. And you see this thumbs up, smash it, and hit that bell notification button. All of it helps this show grow, and it means a whole heck of a lot. All right. USC's defensive line coach, Eric Henderson, he is from New Orleans. And he, and along with the rest of the USC coaching staff, they were really busy on Saturday. First of all, they held a full padded scrimmage, and the refs were in town. They were helping out USC get ready for their upcoming season. I don't know if these are Big Ten refs or not. I'm going to assume that they were Pac-12 refs because that contract doesn't officially end until the end of July, first week of August. However, now I did hear from a couple of folks who were there on the day that the USC defense, they're flying around. I mean, they are pressing the offense right now already. And they're causing the offense to have to lift their game to another level is how it was explained to me. And the reason why I was on campus Saturday, I wasn't there to watch practice. Nobody was allowed to watch practice. I was there to actually watch Zachariah Branch run the 100 with the men's track team. But because of the weather, it was raining, and he had done, from what I was told, he did a heavy leg load that week. It probably wasn't a good idea considering the weather to get out there and run the sprint. As far as practice, there was one note. I'll find out more on Tuesday's practice, but at least one potential defensive back starter was seen on crutches after practice and is scheduled for an MRI. Again, I'm not saying any more than that, but practice was on Saturday, full padded. They had a scrimmage. Referees were out there. And then they were also doing a whole lot of recruiting. So here was Saturday's itinerary: practice, recruiting, eating crawfish. And because practice was taking place with a bunch of elite recruits on hand, USC decided, you know what, we're going to roll out our elite recruiting strategy. And Eric Henderson took out his phone and got one of his pupils on speed dial to come hang out. And because he was in town and he's retired, Aaron Donald said, sure, I'm going to go hang out. I'm going to check out USC's practice, eat some crawfish, lend a hand, see what he could do. This is really significant because of who was there. Let's see. We know about Justice Terry. We know about Isaiah. Well, how about Elijah Griffin, another defensive lineman from Savannah, Georgia? I mentioned Isaiah Gibson. What about Justin Hill, defensive lineman from Cincinnati, Ohio? And there was Dylan Battle from Arlington, Texas. Yeah. You saw what USC did on Sunday, getting those verbal commitments. Well, Coach Henderson, he's got a lot of knowledge. And when it comes to the defensive line development, those guys got to watch his knowledge in action. And I have a feeling since Aaron Donald was around, he might have chipped in a few words here and there. Not sure he's allowed to, but hey, he might have said, hey, good job. I did that too when I was with the Rams. That's what Coach Henney showed me. Those types of things. Look, it shouldn't be difficult to recruit the best athletes to come to the University of Southern California. Between the weather, USC's location, being in the heart of Los Angeles, and its rich tradition, it's not a hard sell. I mean, literally, you bring all those recruits in, and you've got Coach Henney, you've got Aaron Donald hanging around, Ronnie Lott, whoever shows up that day. You're literally trying to sell a child up. Like, you want to have dessert for dinner? It's not a hard sell. So even with USC's weather and location, USC will have difficulties if they're putting up mediocre football results on the field, and if they don't have a prepared name, image, and likeness strategy. Today, recruiting requires more than just winning games and championships. It really does. It's a great place to start, but if you want to recruit elite players, the game's landscape and the rules have changed. Elite football programs, more than ever, they still have to rely on elite coaching and recruiting the best players. that money can incentivize. That's why, Lincoln Riley hired Eric Henderson. You got to get elite coaching. And ever since that happened, as far as Henderson and Antonlynn and Doug Belk and Matt Entz, the endorsements haven't stopped. Because the show is kind of focused on the defense right now, specifically the defensive line haul that USC brought in over the weekend. I wanted to remind everybody what DeMarco Farr said. If any player or parent who has a kid on either side of the football and you want that kid to get better and develop, you go to USC right now. That was DeMarco Farr speaking on behalf of USC and Lincoln Riley and defensive line coach Eric Henderson. So again, it doesn't matter what position you play. You're going to get developed at USC now. Everybody is recognizing USC has the coaching staff. And it's been reported USC has upped its game with their NIL. USC is finally taking advantage of her built-in advantages the right way, with the weather, with the location, with the NIL possibilities, combined with a coaching staff that's second to no one. Look, Aaron Donald doesn't need to be on USC staff. He just needs to be on speed dial. And he just needs to know USC's recruiting schedule. That's it. When they say, hey, Aaron, yes, these guys are going to be at USC this weekend. Aaron can say, all right, let me clear my schedule. I'll be there. Look, selling LA to kids from other parts of the country, it isn't hard. It really isn't. But while you're selling, make those young men and their families feel more at home. And you can do it with easy stuff, like finding out, what's their favorite type of food? What are they familiar with? What kind of music do they like? Well, you had a bunch of guys from the Houston area, from New Orleans, from Texas, Georgia. Well, let's have a crawfish boil, right? These little things, they really are. They're the little things. They make communication easier. And it shows that you're listening and that you care. The parents notice this type of stuff. Again, elite recruiting strategy, it doesn't have to be complex. It's the little things that matter. And if you got an Aaron Donald in your back pocket living down the street, doesn't hurt either. USC had a very successful recruiting weekend. They showed some of their strategy. They're flipping guys. They're getting guys committed that they thought they'd never have a chance with. And it's opening eyes across the country. So now we're going to talk about what's next. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster, and they do it for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. And hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing a lot of hats and that you might not have a lot of time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/.com. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So what's next? I mean, eventually the euphoria is going to wear off, right? And not just for the fans, recruits too. And that's because there's a long ways to go. Look, signing day is the first one is in December. So these guys that have committed, they're going to sit back and say, all right, well, I might take some visits. I'm going to keep in the communication. But I now want to see defense in motion. I want to see what happens when the regular season starts. USC quarterback commit, Julian Lewis. You've got Florida defensive lineman, Jarquez Carter, and others are set to visit next weekend. March 30th is setting up to be a huge recruiting weekend for USC. However, there's not going to be another unofficial visit weekend like the one that USC just had. Their 30th is going to be big. They're keying in on some specific guys, most notably that Juju Lewis. They got to make sure they've got him locked in. There's a lot of smoke out there. So again, nothing like what we just had, but you've got guys coming up. So while there will be some significant recruiting weekends prior to any happening in May, specifically the spring game on April 20th, there probably won't be a 2025 official visitor until sometime the middle of May. And we're talking, I think, the May 17th through 19th weekend. I've heard Taz Williams, Raiden Vines Bright, and Chris Lawson. Those are just a few names. So that's what's coming up. Now, what message is being sent? Right now, high school recruits are hearing a message. They watched 5 of some of the best recruits in the country. So, we want to commit to USC. Well, that message is being translated into the transfer portal as well. I'm here to tell you right now. Again, I can't mention names, but there is more than one big defensive line guy out there that's seriously considering jumping into the transfer portal and making USC his destination. And then there is this consideration. Don't forget about the April transfer portal. USC's recruiting class jumped from 18th in the country to number 3 by getting 5 commitments. If USC sees a similar transfer portal bump at the end of April, this is going to reset the season's expectation level. And I'm using finger quotes, expectation. I don't like using that word. Whether it's fair or not, if USC adds a few more key pieces with elite transfers from the portal, the excuse book in 2024 gets a lot thinner because they're going to have more of the pieces they need. And again, the schedule is difficult. Don't get me wrong. But it's not as difficult as many thought it was when it was first released because of all the coaching changes and all that team upheaval. The key is basically keeping the excitement level going and keeping those young men who are committed. Remember, USC had something like this happen last summer. We know how that ended. We know how quickly things can change. But right now, things are looking really good. USC has a new coaching staff in place, especially on that defensive side of the ball. It's making a huge impact. Recruits who would not even consider USC this time last year are jumping over each other, trying to make their way to LA. The ones who've made their way to LA had a chance to see what's going on spring practice, had a chance to do some face-to-face, one-on-one time with Lincoln Riley, Coach Henderson, Coach Nua, Coach Entz, Coach Belk, defensive coordinator Antonlynn. You see what's happening. I can't wait to see what continues to happen. And again, USC's got a elite recruiting strategy. They're going to roll it out. It'll be unique for each recruit, each recruiting weekend. And then once those official visits starts, watch out. All right, you know what's happening now. It's the end of this episode. I'll be back with another one tomorrow. And you know the rule. You know what to do.